recording.
Yeah.
Just so you know. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully find the mute button here. Where are we on the thing? Can I do a thing here or find the mute button on this today? It should be up here in the participants box. Mute all. Okay, I'm going to mute you, and then afterwards, I'll let you unmute yourself, and we'll take questions. This is going to take about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So here we go. Okay, so I am now going to go to the share screen. After going to the view and we'll just go to the share screen. And if you would please, someone phone me, like Cheryl or someone, if this is not advancing the way it should. I'm going to go to my slideshow at this point. And hopefully you've got a screen that says DNA reports. What should you expect? So we all know, or I assume we do, that databases of DNA sites can be very helpful tools. They all cost money except for GEDmatch that I know of. I don't know of anything else that will do things for you for free. And I'll warn you, even there at GEDmatch, any additions, and they are quite helpful if you're into this, they will cost you some money, but it's pretty reasonable. I have not attempted, nor am I going to list all of the different things. These appear to be the most popular. There are always others edging in. You have to watch population groups and see what it is primarily that you want from this program. Your research and your search needs need to be anchored by your particular needs and goals. For instance, at least at the beginning, was your search casual? Do you expect to define your family story through DNA instead of doing the family history research first or concurrently? Maybe you got a kit given to you as a gift for a birthday or for Christmas, and so you tested along with other family members. Do you have a family tree started? Do you know at least 3 or 4 generations of your ancestors? I'm going to tell you my need and my goal was fostered by a personal medical need. And so I tested first at 23andMe in 2012. And it was because my daughter had had a very unique, a very rare form of cancer. And I wanted to know if that was in our heritage. And so that's why I started my search. By then, I had, it's true, been doing my family history, so it just seemed like one more little add-on, although I did make sure that my brother came in with me. And that really helped because male DNA can help with various kinds of questions. And I'm just like you. I have some non-paternity events back in my heritage. I still haven't found my grandpa's line that I know of. So it can be pretty interesting. My most important considerations that I want to talk about briefly are, again, these personal goals and needs that you have. Maybe you didn't have anything in mind. Maybe it was just an amusement for you, or you thought that you might be able to find everything there. Neither one of those are usually true. I'm very concerned about privacy and security needs and the expectations that we have. I am concerned enough about DNA tests, primarily the female and the male DNA tests and their importance. If you're going to get some information that you're going to help sustain your particular family history. I'm really going to talk about ethnicity reports and their limitations today, because these are concerns that have walked into the library for us with people saying, I thought I was French, but it says I'm not, or I thought I was German, but it says I'm not. And what is this? This is all wrong. Or my cousin says these things are bogus. What do you think? I'll mention haplogroups and the ancient ancestor lines. They're just an itty bitty piece, but they can be very, very interesting and they can help you. And I'm going to talk and show you just a couple of sites that are tools available at their sites because all the sites differ. They all have different tools. They may use very different terminology so that even when you go look at their white papers or the papers that they use to explain the science of what they're doing, they may use different terminology, and sometimes that can be very confusing. Each DNA site, like ancestry.com, ancestrydna.com, MyHeritage, and so on, they all have special tools. There are some things that they share. They're all into this thing called shared matches, showing you where you share how much DNA with another relative prospectively. Be aware that they're all going to use what we call different reference panels or groups. And rarely, some of these may overlap depending on where people have tested. I'm going to tell you right now that an industry standard is that reference panels of any type need to be confirmed using known, verified, paper-based family trees. So there are no easy things. Yes, we can use reference panel information and our DNA when we're coming across an adoptee, or if we're adopted, or we're looking for a non-paternity event. But in primary needs, where people are just attempting to confirm what they think they already know, a reference panel needs to be verified, hopefully by those paper-based family trees, or it needs to show you how to verify that through your family tree. So a good consumer, like all of us, we find out how the reference panels are defined and how, when, and why they have been extended or they're being changed. One of the questions that's come in here is a person came in and said, well, several people actually came in and said, I thought I was Austrian, but now it says the Austrian has disappeared and it just says that I'm German, or it says that I'm Central European. What does that mean? And where did my Austrian go in the first place? Paper-based family trees that you have, the things that you're working on, and I'm just saying paper-based also includes all of those things that we work on, like rootsmagic.com, or if we're working at Family Tree or something like that. That reflects and makes a paper trail for us. And it's really nice when we can kind of confirm that data by a DNA-based piece of information, but it's not the same. And that's a win-win. So you should expect to be assured, first of all, of your privacy and security. All companies are going to show you their statements of privacy. If they don't, just put the company in quotation marks like ancestry.com and put in privacy and security, and it will take you to that particular site. You have a right to know their guaranteed levels of privacy. Are they going to allow your DNA to be used for to seek out criminals? Think about that before you're ever working with a particular site. Companies should also show you how to easily erase your data from the site if you get panicky. But there are consequences. You can't just add it back in. It's gone. So be very, very careful of that. Companies should share info about their security breaks and their privacy promptly. Last fall, 23andMe had a security break, and they worked their way through it. It took them several months, but I know that my account had been at least looked at, and they could provide information to me saying that nothing else had gone out of it, that it had only been looked at. And companies should show you how to download your data to other companies so you can test in other DNA reference groups for additional DNA relatives. That's how to really make the best of at least your initial assessment and testing. Be also aware that as these companies improve their test kits, that you may want to test again because they will be testing more pieces of DNA. And no, they cannot necessarily go back to the original things that they defined because they didn't seek them out in the first place. Virtually every company that I know of has done that. So privacy options, I'm going to tell you right now that for me, GEDmatch is a place that has the best privacy options that I know of. They'll tell you they'd love to have you opt in. It's the most popular in the green bar there. They'll compare your DNA kit to any other kits in the GEDmatch database to find your relatives. They include those submitted by users undertaking personal genetic genealogy research, adoptee researches, and users including law enforcement. So you need to be aware that yours may be used to help identify a perpetrator of a violent crime. Your kit will be compared with kits submitted by law enforcement if you choose this opt-in. You can choose an opt-out, in which we will compare, they say they'll compare the DNA kit to all other kits in the GEDmatch. Those submitted again by everything, but it will not be compared with kits submitted by law enforcement to identify perpetrators. You can opt in to a kit that is only worked with in research. This option is there to provide primarily for artificially created research kits. And it's not one that we commonly see people work with, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. If you choose privacy or private, it's not going to be, your kit will not be matched with anything. It'll be in the database. It'll be batch processed, but no comparison results will be shown unless you change that privacy setting. So that's the one that I think is probably the most thorough, most cut in terms of it.
Gary says your slideshow isn't working.
Gary says my slideshow isn't working. So I'm going to stop the share. And I'm going to go back and we're going to try it again. And we'll see what we can do in terms of this. And I'm just going to bump through everything if I can. You've all been good. I can tell you again, it's not changing here. I'm going to try to talk through this, and if you don't see the screen, I'm going to attempt to send it all to you at the end of this. I apologize for this, but we've had problems with this today, and it's apparently not working. The other privacy things, there's a privacy thing at MyHeritage, safeguarding your DNA, and I can see that's not advancing. I'm not sure of why. Privacy at Ancestry is not. I'm going back once more. And then this will be it. If nothing else, I'll stop it. Stop the share. I'm going back in to the share. And I'm going to see if I can find the beginning of my screen, if it will let me. And now I'm going to try to, participants can now see my screen, it says. I hope you can. Nothing is working here, guys. I apologize.
You have to advance it by hand, and we can see it that way, even from the main screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to advance it by hand here, Gary, because everything is locking up. And I bet Cheryl left the screen. It's changing here now on it. Hey, Gary, can you just tell me via phone, are you seeing a thing that says privacy options? No. Because it's changing
Yes,
now.
the privacy options is up. And
Okay.
I have to switch to do this.
Okay.
Yeah,
So dead match showed, so privacy at MyHeritage should be there now.
not yet.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's just, you should expect to be assured. Okay. Privacy options, dead match. Folks, I apologize for this.
Privacy at Ancestry is now on.
Okay. All right. And privacy at Ancestry is interesting because it talks about who sees your results again, but it does not talk in general about things that it does. You have to go to their article about sharing DNA results to get anything more about their privacy. I'm going to change to the next screen now, and hopefully it says privacy at 23andMe.
It changed.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Can you just keep me kind of clued, because it's changing for you, so it should change for everyone else. Put your phone
I
down
will, but
beside your
you've been
side.
receiving messages also on from the chat screen.
Okay. I'm not going to try to look at them.
Okay, thank you.
Privacy at 23andMe is very similar to GEDmatch. Again, it's pretty thorough. And they still have a white paper that goes beyond this, and they tell you they will not release any individual level personal information to law enforcement unless they are subpoenaed to do so. And still they'll look at it and see if it's legally valid. But I can tell you right now, the only one so far that has guaranteed not to show your stuff to anyone is MyHeritage. But on the other hand, that we know of, they have not been challenged either. Now, we know that 23andMe has been challenged. We know that Ancestry has been challenged and had to give up some data. And we know that GEDmatch was challenged and successfully worked their way through this by providing people with an out so that they wouldn't share data with criminal database seekers. So my next slide says, is it your goal to identify relatives just a few generations back? I think one of the most fun ones doing this is 23andMe, because it has what it's called an intuitive family tree. It puts things up for you and assigns a prospective relative that has tested with them. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. The others will identify close matches, but you still have to go look at your tree separately, your paper tree, which you would do anyway, and kind of provide your own intuition and then add it in. It's not going to give you the feedback that this particular thing is. So at 23andMe, this is what their intuitive tree looks like. This is my report. I'm at the bottom in a big gold circle. My parents are right above me. My grandparents are right above them, and my great-grandparents are right above them. It will also lead downward from you down to other generations beyond you. How does it do this? Well, it takes information like from my brother Mike, or from my nieces Geraldine and Alicia and Amy and Carolyn, my nephew Mark, and assigns them into a tree that looks like this. And it allows me then to actually identify those people. It won't tell you who they are. It'll just say that in this particular generation, you have these people who have tested and we think this is where they fit in your tree, then you have to go and make the connection with it, but they make it pretty easy to do. So starting from the bottom, you can see that there's a whole line there of my child, Carrie Lee, and my niece views, Michelle and Nadine and Bradford and Geraldine and so on. And then there's me in my generation, and then my parents are above. I like this feature. It can be maddening at times. I'm working with this one right now. If I move my tree over, it's a part of my intuitively created tree that I'm verifying. So I've completed a Roots Magic tree about this grouping. And I was able to verify those bottom two, David and Casey, by talking to them via email. I verified their families by completely sourcing their known data. I haven't put that data in yet, so because one of their parents, the information is a little hinky. So it's not entered here yet. I'm analyzing their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents' results all the way back to people that I know about. My great-grandpa, William George Bennett, and his wife, Annie Caroline Quist. So it can be interesting, and I can spend a lot of hours at this tree. Of course, I always have my Roots Magic tree beside me. On the other hand, generational matches found at MyHeritage are showing me that I have 7 in close family that have tested with them, 46 in an extended family with a couple of generations back, and over 17,966 people way back. And that's my Scandinavian heritage. And this is always bouncing up with me with other people saying, oh, I'm your third cousin 3 times removed or whatever. And it is fascinating to see where they are. Fascinating for me because most of these people have stayed in Norway, Sweden, and Finland. I just want to show you one popular site, MyHeritage, and a few of the things that they offer. I'm sure that many of you have tested at Ancestry. You know those features, you know the things that they're doing. My purpose here is just showing you a little bit from 23andMe and from MyHeritage to show you how different all of these sites can be. MyHeritage DNA tools can help you with a thing called the Centimorgan explainer, the small c, big M explainer, Centimorgans. And this is the most fun for me because I can use their tool independent of the results they have. That is, I can bring a result from 23andMe, I can bring a result from GEDmatch, I can bring a result anywhere and merely use their CM explainer. And I don't have to go out and go to Blaine Bettinger's site or go to Johnny Pearl or whatever to be able to do that. So it's a game changer for me. I can do this for any CM that I find, any Centimorgan in any company report. And so it kind of becomes a fast way for me to say, who is this potential cousin and how close are they to me? They use a chromosome browser with shared DNA segments with others to identify a common ancestor. And they also have another thing called an auto cluster tool, which is kind of neat. So they have that Centimorgan explainer. They have the chromosome browser, which is really neat because you can look at all the segments shared between you and multiple DNA matches. And eventually figure out who has to be the common ancestor if you didn't already know. And the auto clusters just help to organize all your DNA matches because like at MyHeritage, gosh, I had more than 15,000 of them. I still do. And I'm working very slowly on just a few of them. Here's that Centimorgan explainer. It allows you to put in a shared amount of DNA, the total amount that you share with someone. So say that you're at Ancestry and it says, it gives you a total shared amount. You can just throw in your age. My age would be 77. You can throw in the match's age and get an idea of the distance within the relationship. And that's pretty cool. It's fast
Mm.
and it gives you beginning information. So for instance, data from a site gave me a person who shared with me 45.3 centimorgans. That was the largest segment, which tells me it's pretty close to me. The larger the segment, that the largest segment is, the closer it may be to you. I was actually only sharing 3.3% DNA with this person for a total of 232.9 centimorgans. My age was 77. This dude's age was 28. And they said he had to be a first or second cousin's son. And that's true. When I worked through it, he was Connie Heron's son, as shown by my already sourced Lee family tree over in Roots Magic. If you want to know more about this and you want to know more about the Centimorgan Project, which has been around for quite some time, and to see the latest research and the latest new apps that came out as a result of Roots Tech last week, then you're going to want to go out and search on this fellow called Blaine Bettinger, Bettinger, and Johnny Pearl, Perl, because they are the gurus. I'm not saying that there aren't other people. It's just that they seem to be on the leading edge and they seem to talk to other people who are on the leading edge with these things. Well, at any rate, let me show you what Hector and I look like in a tree. Here I am in the U box over on the left side. And here's Hector over in that second cousin's child and second cousin, actually, where he was looking. And notice it gave us a range of where he could be, but they were saying, from the amount of centimorgans, it looks like it's going to be a cousin's child. Now, it doesn't tell me who the cousin is, unless that cousin happened to have tested. This young man's this young man's mother, I should say, who was my cousin, had actually died. And I had lost contact with her, so I was very grateful to get the information. So a report that takes you within my heritage to some things, it'll tell you that here's Ingi Brekan from Norway, and my estimated relationship with him is he's my fourth cousin's son. With medium confidence. Most of these places will tell you whether they're confident of the relationship or not. So look for that confidence statement. Tells me how much shared DNA I have, appears in a family tree. So I can go right out there and look at this person because they've connected us and made sure that we have a match that we can share very quickly. Well, if your goal is, and I really wanted to get to this, is to identify your ethnicities, all the testing companies do this with varying results. And this is a big concern for many people. When we talk about reference group panels, each company develops its own reference group panel based on people who come in to test with it or a group that they have volunteered into it. For example, I know that my group in 23andMe that I was originally with, I was with 816 other people who had actually tested out of Spring Grove, Minnesota, and they were in a PhD study. And so they were able to develop a very unique Norwegian reference group panel from that group of people, 816 of us. I want you to really lower your expectations and expect a lot of variations. Don't expect results down to the latest country from which your ancestor migrated. That's really unrealistic because remember, countries are political entities. They didn't have that particular descriptor maybe 5 generations ago, 8 generations ago. And so you want to look for something much more broad. Remember, Germany did not exist as a country until about 1871. So I should expect something like Western European or Central European, or if I'm a little more into the Eastern sector, then maybe an Eastern European or whatever. That would be the very best. Reference group panels are important because they need to be attached again to known trees, or people need to work through that known set of information that we get by doing our very hard, good research, looking for sources and looking for things that really do tie us to families. Thus, that's why all of our certificates and so on are very important. At Ancestry, they say a reference panel for them is a set of people whose DNA is typical of DNA from a certain place, people native to a place or group. To make it into their DNA reference panel, people need two things. They need a paper trail that proves their family history and DNA confirmation. I'm going to tell you right now, I've been able to find DNA confirmation of ethnicity, but because they have so many groups, it's been very difficult for me to trail it back to family history, and I haven't seen that evidence yet. I want you to remember that reference group panels like this have been around for a long time before we started doing them with regard to genealogy. There might be medical companies, pharmaceutical companies, various kinds of scientific agencies who have been working with reference populations and reference panels for many decades. There's going to be differences in the algorithms or the way in which each company uses their analysis techniques. So maybe you're going to find out it's not the results that are wrong or that one test is better than another. It's just that things are still being worked on. And candidly, if we're doing this right, then we're going to really extend and spread these. It's not going to be narrowed. So for you, you need to decide which platform, Ancestry or MyHeritage or 23andMe or GEDmatch, has what you need regarding ethnicity. Maybe you're trying to find out where you came from because you're an adoptee. Maybe you have a suspected change, or maybe your mom never told you who your dad was. Those are difficult situations to work with. People work with those, and candidly, those people are frequently told, test as many places as you can, because these reference panels are going to be different, and people choose to test at them for different reasons. Thus, you want to spread your opportunities to be able to get that information. Just remember that a reference group may represent an ethnicity, region, or area, but it may have some quirks thrown into it. My caution for you with Ancestry DNA is that it has 88 of these reference groups. That's impressive. It'll tell you it's tested millions of people. So have others, and that's impressive. But remember, when it all comes down to it, your data is only being compared to a specific reference group. And when you look at reference groups and you're looking at what people are deciding is a particular reference group, there needs to be a well-defined geographic explanation along with the reference group. And right now I'm still working to find verification for the family trees attached within Ancestry. They've done some white papers, and you may want to go look at those. They've attempted to explain themselves, but trying to figure out how they have attached these family trees and how they verified the family trees is not readily apparent to me. I'm sure that it may be there. I just need more information. So right now, for me anyway, I prefer the more generalized description of my ethnicity. Each reference group should be well-defined, well-sourced, and all family trees attached need to be verified, not just by the people who are claiming that heritage, but also by a second party. That's just my advice. That's just me. So the reference panel at 23andMe is a little better. They're showing results from 47 populations, and they have 14,000 people with known ancestry working with their charts and working with that background. To me, it's a little better. If you're looking for any of these and you're attempting to say, what the heck is a reference panel, or why would I need to be concerned with that? Anytime you want a little bit about the reference panels anywhere, even if they're not using the common reference called reference panel. I just Googled those. For instance, I Googled Ancestry DNA reference panel and had one pop right up. And you'll be able to see some of these things. Be aware that there are population science skeptics out there who will also work with these and say, this part isn't proven yet. But that's pretty exciting. Here's my ethnicity at my heritage. It says I'm 52.2% Scandinavian. Yes, I am. I'm 35.8%, according to them, Eastern European. That's my grandma's side coming straight from a place that is very close to the Czech Republic today. And I'm 12%, a couple of others with some genetic groups. I haven't really explored those that much. Here's what it looks like on their map. It's giving me some very broad ideas about where these things could come from. That little black circle inside of the Norway tells me mid-Norway, and that's where I have a lot of people in the Trondheim area. So that's kind of accurate. I haven't figured out the United Kingdom thing yet. I'm hopeful that somewhere that's my great-grandfather's DNA showing up, but nobody showed it in the pool enough for me to be able to be there. And of course, the Poland, Czech Republic, Ukraine references there telling me about that Eastern European thing. Well, here I am this time, same thing with a map, and this is at 23andMe. And because its reference panel is a little different again, it's explaining that I'm 80% Northwestern European. That's my Scandinavian with a little bit of French, German, North Rhine, Westphalia thrown in there because they apparently have some people from the Rhine, Westphalia area that have tested in their pool and others don't. I'm a little bit British. I'm a little bit Finnish, but by and large, I'm what I would call broadly European. At least my DNA is. Here's my concern with ancestry. I became very excited about this when I saw a DNA genetic group there, one of their 88, that was just defined as being West Virginia and Virginia. But then they further described it as 200 English and Germans in the US, verified by 73 family trees. I'd be very excited for this if I could readily see the information, because I do have what I suspect are relatives from this area. Unfortunately, none of them have tested in this pool, but I am warning you, this is pretty small, be claiming that West Virginia heritage. I want to remind you again that if you get one of these, you would have to do an extreme amount of work. Their confidence level is high because they have so few people, and apparently many of these people appear to be interrelated. Thus, I don't know, could there be pedigree collapse? I don't know about this. Just realize that when each company has a reference panel or group, you need to look for their exact definition. And for me, this one at Ancestry is confusing because it's defined by the state, and yet they say it's English, German, and I haven't made the connection yet. So just be very, very careful. Be a real good doubter. You can always look at the information and say, well, right now it says this, but doubt until you can reconfirm it through that paper tree. The DNA ethnicity reports at Ancestry, there's 88 of them right now. And I'm talking about this Virginia, West Virginia thing again with the English and Germans in the United States. To me, that's a really be careful. That's a yikes for me because there's still not enough proof there. And so I would appreciate at Ancestry, just being me, if their ethnicity reports with some of this were a little more generalized. I would hate to lead people down a false garden path. They do have 71,000 samples in their reference pool. Remember, they are not checking you against everybody out there, other than giving you your matches for your other things. That all of these people, maybe you have 17,000 of them, like I do over in my heritage. That's not matching me with those. That's saying that 17,000 of us share data from a reference panel showing that we are very similar. So we need to look at everything very, very carefully. I would prefer it in Ancestry, that their reference panels were a little better defined. They have a Southern Italy with 1,651 people, but there's no other Italy. So what does that mean? They have a mainland Southeast Asia. They have Sweden and Denmark together and Norway separated. I'm just not sure of those. It's a caution light. It doesn't mean I'm not going to look at the data. Oh, yes, I am. But be careful. What should be your expectations for an ethnicity report? Hopefully, it's going to be generalized across the populations where it won't just say a country. It shouldn't, not unless it's just reporting you with some very recent people. I would look for things like Central Asian, Northern European. It may express the amount of ethnicity they think you share in percentages, but remember, that's still a range. It might show a map, and that might be a little better because maps are great at showing ranges. I just want you to be a wise consumer of the information because they all have good information, but you always have to assume there are going to be limitations. And don't be surprised if your ethnicity report changes. This has happened several times at Ancestry.com. And what you need to find out is if they added to a particular ethnicity pool in their reference panel and why they did that, and where are the verified family trees? What did they do? Expect a white paper about that so that it explains things a little better. And you always can query these places and say that you've been matched with. Sometimes they will answer, and sometimes you don't get an answer. I've found that I'm sure not going to err by not asking the question in the first place. I'm going to ask and let them try to answer me. Remember again that there are ethnicity companies not just involved with DNA for genealogy. There's the Yale Center for Medical Informatics, and it has genomic data for various kinds of population samples. So there are other places to look and other things to do. You won't be able to match the data that you have, but you can go out to look and see what others have done with their particular data and what kind of sampling has occurred in a particular place. Haplogroups. Let's talk just for a minute about a haplogroup because it tells you about your ancient DNA connections. And it can inform you initially about geographic locations, like 5,000-6,000 years ago or more. Family Search, which is another free site, says a haplogroup is a grouping of people that share a common ancestor way back. They're connected to a specific family line, often dating back to thousands of years. There are female haplogroups, male haplogroups, each based on different DNA tests. I was excited because I have my information well sourced within my paper trail to see that my female group followed back just as I would expect it to. Now, I can't take it back thousands of years, but my paper trail followed back to the 1700s, to the early 1700s. Each mom going from mom to my mom to her mom to her mom and so on. And that was another nice piece of indirect confirming information for me. So take a look at your haplogroups and see where they are. The best information that I have found about haplogroups actually is by going out and looking at haplogroup information. You can look at Wikipedia stuff in the United States, but the best that I found is in Europe, and it's called Upedia. And you'll want to go there because they're doing a great deal and keeping up with the latest research with haplogroups. I'm in this haplogroup called K1C1b, actually, but my haplogroup is traces back to a woman that lived about 22,000 years ago. Yeah, it would be nice if we could all do that. It just gives me a hint. That's all it does. And my maternal haplogroup, K1C1b, traces back to that woman who lived about 2,500 years ago. So it was fun for me to be able to do the mom to her mom, to her mom, to her mom connection all the way back with my paper trail, because it just gave me this little thing that said, maybe there is something to the haplogroup stuff. The haplogroups are in very, very early stages, folks, but they will provide you with some information. So there are big deals about mtDNA, that is the female, and the Y-DNA male tests, because they're determined by the maternal haplogroup is defined by looking at variants in your mitochondrial DNA. Everyone, all of you, all of us inherit their mitochondria from their mothers, male or female. But it's only goes backward on the females. And paternal haplogroups are very interesting, the Y chromosome, because it's the sex determining chromosome for males, inherited from their fathers, and about 95% of the Y chromosome remains relatively intact across generations. So it's pretty good stuff. So if you're testing to find out about paternal ancestry, Y may be best if you can find a relative, maybe a cousin from the male line that is in your line if your dad is not alive, or a brother, an uncle, testing that to see where it might be. Again, be very careful about thinking about what it is that you want to find. And be very respectful of other people as you ask them to test for their paternal or their maternal ancestry. Some people want to do it, some people don't, and we must respect them. Remember, you can look at, if you've got your paper trail, you can look at everyone who might be eligible to be tested, and that's something good. Maybe somebody says, yeah, I've tested, I'm at Ancestry, I know you guys are all doing this over at MyHeritage. I don't want to do this test again. Well, the good news is, even though Ancestry and 23andMe as groups, neither one of those allow tests to come in, but they will allow you to export your data to other places. So you could export it to MyHeritage. You could export it to GEDmatch or whatever, wherever those people are. And it might still give you the means to be able to take part in that particular assessment. Remember, only moms pass their mitochondrial DNA down to their children. So you can see here, a grandmother will give it to your father, another grandfather on the other side will give it to your mother, and that mom will give it to the son and the daughter. But when you're looking back, if you're looking to the far right, then the daughter to the mother, to the grandmother, to the great grandmother, and so on. And so the line goes. That's why that is so important. And the haplogroup can tell you where people were at a certain time or where they're said to have been. Be aware that this can change. This is not a static map. This can change as I get even more information. So maybe your goal is you want to identify an unknown parent or a relative. So identify any living individuals around you that it would be most beneficial to test and which test would be best. At the time that I was working on my goal of looking at health prospects, I was not looking at this, but I did have my brother, one of my brothers, test at that point, and I found it tremendously beneficial because I've been able to, with his permission, export his data over to GEDmatch and export his data to MyHeritage and so on, so that we could see what he might have to inform our family group generally about our great grandfather on our Lee side, because my grandfather's dad was an unknown person. You might want to use a cousin or your siblings or a suspected uncle or an aunt. Broaden your perception. Don't just look at your straight line. Go outward and look beyond so that you can see others that you may be able to test. Persuade them to test or transfer their information. Be prepared to buy some kits for the relatives you're asking to test, and then ask for permission to manage or to co-manage the kits so the information can be analyzed easily by you. Maybe that person you're testing has no interest. Maybe they'll give you that permission, or maybe they won't. They'll say, I want to manage it, but I'll let you look at it with me. Get that information, to share information, or to look at the data together. Be cognizant of family reservations about these tests. A lot of people don't like them, and we need to recognize that. In conclusion, when we're looking at DNA, it could be another nice tool. Notice I said another nice tool, not the only tool. Even for adoptees or people who have a mystery in their background, the tool can be quite helpful at the beginning, but you're still going to be doing those trees. Maybe you're going to be trying to figure out who someone is by actually making a family tree for the person that you're looking at. You may have to do the hard work, and I encourage you to do that hard work. It's very important. I recommend that you look at results carefully. Utilize the site based on its possible advantages for you. I put my brother's DNA out at FTDNA so that we might find out hints about our grandfather Oscar Lee's unknown paternal heritage. It's many years and we're still looking. We haven't found it. Be cautious when you interpret results. Always, always be careful. Do you know enough to know what you don't know? Don't reach conclusions without trying out those conclusions against your paper trail. Yeah, you can celebrate when you find super stuff, like a new to you niece, a half brother, a half sister. And if Carolyn's listening today, then thank you, Carolyn, for finding us 5 years ago. You have been the delight of our life. Do port your data to other sites which might be beneficial. I put my 23andMe results at MyHeritage. I found 15,000 cousins. Sigh. That's difficult. I have been working with some of those and respecting the fact that more than ever, there were a lot of people who stayed in Norway. And I didn't realize that. I wish I would have known during the 2 times that I went there. There are other tests coming online all the time. Here's a 3-in-1 ancestry test from this thing called Living DNA. They say they're going to give you your recent ancestry from all sides of your family broken down across 80 worldwide regions. Ouch. Okay. They're going to give you your father line ancestry and your mom line. That tells me that they're using some of that mtDNA, and they're also doing some tests called autosomal tests, which will give you at least some hints about that, about either one of those. The most popular test today, in fact, being done by all of them is an autosomal test, which we didn't even bother to go into today. So that's the end of my slideshow, and I'm back out of the share screen, I hope. And Gary, I want to thank you very much for what you've done to guide us. I'm going to let you all unmute yourself if you have questions. No? Yes? Maybe? And Richard.
Still recording?
Yep. Do you want me to stop recording?
Well, I don't know. I thought maybe you were going to.
Well, I usually don't stop till the end because sometimes you guys give me great questions and I want to be able to go back and listen to those and do some research on that particular question or those particular things, and especially with regard to this topic. So if you feel comfortable about talking about personal information, you can do that. Otherwise, kind of generalize it or genericize it, shall we say, if you're going to ask me some questions. And remember, I am not in any way an expert on this. I'm probably more of an expert at cautions and the be careful-ese that I've given you today. Even though I will tell you, I use the information from my DNA constantly. I'm constantly updating other people's records that are within my paper trail and showing what they are as shown by their DNA when I find it at my heritage and so on, because it's just a tremendously neat thing to see. I think it's very cool. Gary is trying to ask me a question, but you did not unmute yourself. Nope. Okay, I'm going to try to,
Kind of interesting here.
go ahead, Jan.
Well, I'm trying to see if I can't just get back here. My question about this whole, it's a complicated kind of direction that I want to go as far as finding more information about a couple of ancestors that I have that I never knew I had. So it's very difficult for me to think that I would go into this kind of direction right now. I admire your efforts in that way you're doing things with your family. But I think I just want to go back 2 or 3 generations, just because
Sure.
there's nobody in my family now that are alive, or my cousin, who is my only cousin left in the world, I guess. Maybe not, but there's nobody interested. But my son is. And so I want to be able to leave some sort of legacy for him, but to go on to do all what you've done is just amazing. I would
Well,
not.
all it is a paper trail, Jan. Remember that?
Oh,
And
I got
so
the paper trail.
yeah,
I got
if
the
you're doing the
paper trail.
cookie crumbs for him, that'll be good.
Yeah. But I want to come up and share that with you and get your more direction for me.
Okay.
So I'm going to make an effort to come up, and then maybe I can help you guys out some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
One day a week or something.
Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays, I'm here. And
Okay.
since I regard it as the playpen here, I'm here a lot of the other days too. I just
Yeah.
don't admit to it.
Okay. I don't blame you.
Jan, I had a question for you.
Okay.
I put it on the chat, but I didn't see anything about that. So I was told if you send in a second DNA sample to the very same company, you could get a totally different result because they just test a small snippet of your DNA. Is that so?
No. What is true is that they may do an addition and a few deletions, but no, it's not going to be totally different. You're going to find that it still has very common factors across the test. I've tested twice at 23andMe. I've tested twice at my heritage. And frankly found little change. I would suspect that's because I'm so heavily Scandinavian, but no, you won't find totally different results. You may find additions. They may have, for example, 23andMe, Ancestry, and My Heritage have all explained that as they have improved their test techniques, they have added in other measures, and so they're testing more of your total overall DNA. But please remember that in the first place, what they're testing is you, essentially you. So they can't change you. All they can do is maybe add in a few other factors. And frankly, I found that at 23andMe and at My Heritage, I'm not all that changed.
That's good to know, because I've gone on this concept that if it's going to change totally, then they don't have much information.
Yeah. No, generally what it is they've found other factors and other things that they can add in. Remember that we're just looking at certain parts of our DNA when we are looking at genealogy. Some very, very small areas, actually. And so if you remember that, Hi, guys. Hi, Mary. Uh, if you remember that, then essentially, even if you send in another test kit, you're sending in the same genetic information. They're just adding in some other things that they're doing. That's all.
My son and daughter both tested and I would think would have matching results, but they don't.
No, my brother and I don't. If I could show you my brother Mike and I, we're very, very different. We can see where we are very much in common, but there's no doubt that I got more of my DNA from my mom's side, no, my dad's side, than my brother did, even though we're sharing those things. And when I look at his daughters, who are also in my pool, then I can really see it at a distance of one more generation and see what that difference is. So no, we're not going to share 50%. We're not going to, whatever. I share approximately 39% with my brother Mike. So it's different.
I thought it would just be a match.
Yeah, nope, they aren't. That's why it's so neat to be able to test siblings. If you can test enough, and you can test enough in a group. I mean, I've only seen or heard of one case so far, but one place made the case for a gentleman who tested so many people that they think they've been able to fill in roughly like 75% of previous DNA within past generations. And that's pretty cool to see that. Does he have 100%? No. But I assume he must have bought lots of kits.
Jen,
Yeah.
when you were talking about, this is a definitional question. There was a slide you were talking about pedigree. I think you said clash.
No, pedigree collapse.
Oh, collapse. Thank you. Thank you. I
Pedigree
got my hearing
collapse.
aids in,
And
but
that happens
collapse.
when, say
Yeah,
that people
I
are
understand
living,
that.
yeah. I mean, that's what I'm looking at when I look at that ancestry thing with Virginia and West Virginia, assuming that
Yes.
there must be some pedigree collapse there because there
Yeah.
were 200 people who responded that are in their pool, and they've confirmed all of those matches from 73 trees. And I'm
Okay.
suspecting that there would be some collapse. That is that sometimes maybe some first cousins or even second cousins married into
I
particular
got you.
families. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Good recovery, by the way.
Collapse. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta.
Jen, do you have several trees out there? Do you have a tree at 23andMe and Ancestry and MyHeritage and
I do not have one at Ancestry. I'll tell you what I use. I think Ancestry is positively marvelous for sources and resources. I am suspicious of a lot of their trees and the background, and so I don't waste my time there. I have one tiny tree with 4 or 5 people on it that I call cousin bait. Nobody snapped at me, to be able to do that. I have my inferential tree at 23andMe. Early on, 23andMe said, we're not doing a tree ourselves. You can go over to MyHeritage. They had a deal with them then. And so I do have a considerable tree over there. But I have been very careful of my tree in terms of sourcing it and proving things. And so I'm pretty careful. I'm a consumer that is more likely to use all the benefits of Find My Past, of MyHeritage, of Ancestry, of some of these larger units, because I want to do more research based on the archival information they have and that they collect each month. And so, and American Ancestors, by the way, because their archive is wonderful. I just wish that I had a lot of people in New England, and I don't, doggone it. But I'm more likely to use them for research. That's just me, and that's my researcher training than I am to use them for family trees or to look at them. Now, will I look at a tree occasionally? Yes. And if I'm helping my niece, because we do some work together in finding adoptees and finding non-paternal events for people, then yes, I will use trees, but I will promptly start a separate tree, a private tree to try to prove what that is. I never take someone's tree as gospel. Just
Right.
don't do it.
Exactly. Thank you.
Anyone else? I hope I gave you enough today to be cautious as you're looking at this. I don't know, raise your hand if you're online and you have tested. I've tested several places, I told you. Some of you have, some of you haven't.
I have not.
Yeah, and it's just interesting to see. I've worked with various people who have tested many places and were frustrated because they were really expecting that the tree kind of might fall down on them. And they might get a tree out of it. And that's pretty difficult. You have to be, I mean, you have to really respect the process and say that DNA is just one more resource for us, and that it has a long way to grow. And frankly, as it has a long way to grow, it's going to stretch out, folks. It's not going to come in and it's not going to narrow. There are many things. I wish I had another 40 years in me because I would love to be here to see what's going on and to see what you can do and what you can't do. I would also caution all of us, including me, to be careful of what you wish for, because sometimes you find out that the heritage isn't what you thought it was. And so that can cause some concerns and some things. I would tell you that if you're going out and you are looking at things and you suddenly get a cousin where you haven't had one before, or you get something that says this person might have enough of those CMs that they're a half brother or half sister, I whip out my camera right away and I take pictures of what they've put up, because if they get scared and they take their stuff down, I won't have access to it. In other words, I don't assume that it's always going to be there if it's new. When I first see it, I pop on that picture and look at those things, because I know I'm going to think carefully before I write, but I'm going to write a note to them showing what I think we share. And I don't want to scare them off. But if I do, I want to be able to at least see that beginning data in the first place. And I can't see it if they take it offline. So yeah, I do a lot of screenshots. I think they're a very important thing. Keep your phone handy, do the screenshots, look at them, and recognize that people can get scared just like you do in terms of a relationship where they say, where did this come from? Maybe you find out that a grandma had a child before she was married and you didn't know about that, but it was common knowledge among your great aunts. It just wasn't talked about. Maybe you find out that an uncle had a carefree, happy life early on in his life and kind of sowed his seed various places. And so you've got people you didn't expect at all coming to you. Give them the benefit of a doubt. Try to help them where you can. And if you need to take a little break from it, then take that break. But just because a person doesn't want to acknowledge a relationship doesn't mean that the relationship isn't there. It means that maybe familially we're not thinking of them in a close relationship, but they do have that genetic relationship with us. And I
Wow.
think